So here we are with Andrew Wu Yue. You returned to Shanghai in 1993.
When you were born?
Exactly.
See, there's a connection. I was living in Canada for 13 years.
Why you chose to come back?
I grew up during the Cultural Revolution. I benefited from the open door policy, was extremely fortunate to have the opportunity to leave the country to study overseas. I did not know Elvis Presley until he's dead.
Many people know you from LVMH.
When people talk about fashion, I keep saying fashion is not just clothes. What about music? What about live performance? People playing games, street dance. Fashion goes way beyond textiles.
You talked about 耕耘 idea.
I always believe that even as individual, you and me with names, that's a brand. Parents gave us this brand. So people don't realize brand is like a person. It takes time to establish. You can rush it, you can give it steroid. It may not live long because it look good, but it's not with substance. So you need to live to make it successful. You are subject to weather, seasonality. Don't forget fashion also use the word fashion season.
How to balance progress with nostalgia?
For a city to continue to live, you need to be able to attract young people.
Dear you,
Yes.
why you think suddenly young people crave this authenticity?
One of the examples of unintended consequences. The more we become international, the more we appreciate local. China has reached a point that collective appreciation of culture is on the rise.
Localization of branding.
Chinatown, that's not the China I came from. Every year, zodiac signs, tiger, dragon, red lanterns, fortune cookies. Never heard of it. Even today in China, hardly anybody hear it. But in North America, all the Chinese restaurants, and people are having fun with it. Nothing wrong.
The Louis ship that is part of the Shanghai so much.
The Louis, the boat, nothing apparently Chinese, but it's deeply, deeply connecting with Shanghai, connecting with the rest of the world by water. China is not one China, it's many, many Chinas. The level of competition here is also fierce. I think the birth of new physical retail in China probably will be better than any other place because it's 内转, result of 内转.
Younger Andrew Wu would be most surprised by
The older Andrew Wu. Haipai, the solution is no pie. Things will work out. There's a song called Don't Worry, Be Happy. Shanghai is a city of China, but also it's a city of the world. Yusuva.
Yes. So here we are with Andrew Wu Yue, someone that beyond his remarkable career is almost like a cultural translator of modern China. He understands not just the business side of Shanghai, but also its emotions, contradictions, memories, and culture shifts across different generations. So I'm really honored to have you here today, and I'm really excited to talk to you about the core of this all emotions.
Thank you so very much for having me here. I feel very happy to be joining this conversation with you.
Thank you.
And I know that you have just started your podcast, right? Not too long ago. Hope more and more people watching you.
Thank you. Thanks. Many people know you from LVMH, and fewer people probably know you about your impressive music industry career. And maybe even fewer people know about your amazing family background and environment. Going back to the first sense of beauty, where do you think it's coming from?
I ask myself this question sometimes as well. And I think we are all product of our upbringing, our experiences. I'm certainly with no exception. I benefit from my background growing up in Shanghai because it's actually a quite rich city. Despite periods of being closed, it had a lot of cumulative collective DNAs in the city. When I was growing up, I may not realize it, but you get exposed to it. Nobody can choose where you are going to be born. Maybe someone can choose, but not me. But I'm very grateful that I was born and raised in this city. My family was involved in cultural activities that also helped my aesthetics. Going overseas contributed. So to make a long story short, I believe my experience, even without planning, went through various segments of cultural involvements. Sony Music was cultural. My current business, even though I have been involved for more than 2 decades and a long time, it's actually quite a cultural business when you think about it, because the value comes from cultural representations more than the materials, even though it's a material product, but it's laden with culture. When people talk about fashion, I keep saying fashion is not just clothes.
Yeah.
Not at all. Don't assume that, because it's fashion, so therefore you instantly think it's a designer. It's a fashion show for clothes. I said, what about music? What about live performances? What about people playing games, street dance? So fashion goes way beyond this textile or designer. It's too narrow to be considered. And I keep reminding people, and so you look at all the fashion cities in the world, look at the representation of fashion. What do you see? Do you see just a tailor? Or do you see a textile factory? You see, this is the wrong notion. We want to call it a fashion industry because it's a subjective definition. And you need to be having fashion in the air. So it's all about everything.
You returned to Shanghai in 1993.
When you were born?
Exactly. How do you know?
You see, there's a connection. My Chinese name, by the way, Yue, I often consider this probably interesting sort of symbol of my life. I was away from Shanghai. I was living in Canada for 13 years. Came back in 93, which was a time that many people were still planning to leave and not coming back. And 93 was a year that was probably not by coincidence. I think it was a milestone year in the development of Shanghai, redevelopment of Shanghai, because we all know the open door policy of China since 1978, 79. 1980 was the year I left, and most of the 80s, almost the entire decade of 1980s, China was developing, but developing in a way to learn from the four dragons in Southeast Asia to become export place, cheap labor, making things for other markets. So that was the decade of China development, 1980s. The beginning of 1990 was the year, if I recall correctly, was the opening of Pudong in Shanghai. But it was even symbolically the beginning of Shanghai opening up, but it was not obvious. 1993 was probably progressively more clear what that meant. In Shanghai, more than any other place in China, symbolizes that movement and Pudong development. And I came back in 93. It was the time that you started to feel that. During the first 3 decades of New China, the rest of the country was still very poor. And Shanghai, as an economy, a contributor to the national economy, was playing an extraordinary role. That's really a very unique and, in fact, historic moment of China entering a new phase. Once again, 1990s was not so obvious when we were going through it. Now we go back and revisit that moment. We'll say probably that's ground zero. That's that's the beginning of a new phase, which is, in all fairness, very accurate.
Talk about 1993. It was a time that not many people actually realized that this is going to happen. But in your case, why you chose to come back? At the time when you say a lot of people actually was looking outwards, thinking about chasing dreams outside of China.
People from my generation, not all of us could keep up with the change of China. I grew up during the Cultural Revolution. And I benefited from the open door policy going into schooling, etc. And I was extremely fortunate to have the opportunity to leave the country to study overseas, and also experienced a sort of life in a different country, more developed country, when China was going through, as I mentioned, export-driven development. When I was overseas for the first 13 years, for the first 5, I never made one trip back home.
Okay.
It was a time that today probably people would not understand. It was a time that even making a long distance call was very expensive and very inconvenient. We had no internet. It was a time of much slower development, but it was also a time that I think I had the personality and the ability to really try to, hungry and thirsty, learning what's going on, to get sort of updated, to learn things that probably, not probably, definitely missed by people growing up in China. For instance, I did not know Elvis Presley until he's dead. And I was in Toronto and I was listening to Elvis Presley and said, wow, this is interesting. And actually, just the first week of my arrival in Toronto, within the first week, the radio gave the news of John Lennon being killed in New York. Right. That was the beginning of my learning about Beatles.
Oh, okay.
But that was like decades after Beatles became hot, right? But I'm pretty sure at that moment, I was still way ahead of most of my compatriots, and most people would not know Beatles, right? Yeah. So 80s was very educational to me. Not knowing then, it would benefit me later. And then I started to travel back to Shanghai since mid-1980s. One trip at a time, and then two trips at a time, and seeing the transformation, speed of change, right? It's about really the speed of change. And then you see gradually every year you come back. And I think it was a process of probably at least 5 to 6 years of me relearning about my motherland, seeing China from a different angle with an international viewpoint, and also seeing it change. I saw the birth of Huating Sheraton Hotel. I saw the birth of Portman Ritz-Carlton. At that time, it was not even Ritz-Carlton. It's Shangri-La, JC Mandarin. It's all the new hotels coming up. So by 1993, probably I was one of the few people who felt the green shoots of change in the city, because I started to travel back. So I started to have this idea and say, if there's an opportunity, I may wish to come back and work, right? It's just work, not with any grand vision, not thinking, oh, I'm going to move back forever. Right time, but again, not by planning. So that was the motivation.
Some of the right decisions of our life sometimes just happens like without not giving it.
I always tell young people, older people, or living people, luck is always very important. When we achieve something, it's not just by our own ability alone. It's always important to be grateful.
Once I read that you talked about 耕耘 idea.
Yes.
Usually people say like creating a brand in terms of like 打造品牌, that's probably more a used word. Why 耕耘 in your case you think it's actual? Is it the way you look at the work, or it's actually the way you live life?
Probably a combination, including the way I live life. And I always believe that even as individuals, you and me with names, that's a brand. Our parents gave us this brand, and we live through life to make it a brand or not, or successful brand or not successful brand. So people don't realize brand is like a person. It takes time to establish. You can rush it. You can give it steroids. You can push it to the gym to get big muscles. Yeah, all that, but may not live long because it look good, but it's not with substance, right? So the long-living brand is actually long-living because they act like a person. It could be up and down, okay? Many of the European brands actually were created at the beginning, and the brand names are actually the founders' names, you realize.
Oh, yeah, when you talk about it.
American brands, different, but they make it as if they gave birth to a child, right? It's not you, but I gave birth.
I
You see, I create. But nonetheless, brands are like people, okay? So you need to live to make it successful. So with that, I use the word 耕耘. It's cultivating rather than manufacturing. Cultivating means you are subject to weather. You see, I like that because there's a farming connotation, right? It may grow and may grow better, but it could also die and need constant watering. And the shape it comes out may not be a perfect mold. So that's why it's individually different. Seasonality,
Right.
it gives flowers, but it didn't go dead. It withered. And then the next season comes, maybe it comes back again. Don't forget, fashion also use the word fashion season. You see? There's a seasonality, right?
I see.
So with all this, I thought cultivating is a better word. I make one brand. It doesn't work. I make another brand. So you think you're just doing this and the recipient doesn't know it? But it doesn't mean that I'm diminishing the importance of marketing and all the powerful tools, etc., etc. Yes, all that. But certainly I'm not for this notion that it can be manufactured. It's more cultivating. I'm speaking about this to try to sort of cross into not just for people who are interested in one industry, but to think about it for what you do. I think that's probably what I meant by cultivating. And that's why I agree with you. It's more of a combination, inclusive of how I see myself living my life.
You are like 穿越者, right? As you say, you pass through
Yes.
different changes of China's
Yes,
different
yes,
development.
yeah.
My studying years, I would get baozi in the morning. Like I would get tied to this little shop. And then at some point when I go back, it's gone. Somehow, I mean, even something better replaced it. But I still feel a little bit like, I feel like they took away my memories with the city. So how to balance this like progress with nostalgia?
To me, I think the balance rests in continuous attraction of young people coming into the city. People who would feel very sad that, okay, some things are disappearing or have already disappeared, which is true. But there are things that have not disappeared and stayed. So therefore, it's a way of life. I think it's a living city in evidence. So I see it in a probably a little bit more positive way than otherwise. Because for a city to continue to live, you need to be able to attract young people. As long as Shanghai continues to do that, you have this vibrancy. Older generations, younger generation, new generations, educated people all started to appreciate that, you see. That's why you see this movement to re-embrace, to re-appreciate. So that's already a balance.
And we can see it in different aspects of industries, even like with restaurant, with food, right? Before I saw a lot of Chinese restaurants in bigger regional cuisine. Let's say it's a Sichuan food, it's Shanghai. But now around Shanghai, I see this little regional bistros. And same with the movies, right? Now we go to movies, there's a lot of dialect happening. Dear You,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
It was beautiful movie.
Very moving.
So I cried a couple of times. Even me with that dialect, I was really emotional.
Yes, yeah.
So why do you think suddenly young people crave this authenticity?
One of the examples of unintended consequences, the more we become international, the more we appreciate local. Thanks to massive internationalization of the last 3 decades, that we come back to embrace more local culture. And also it's because when we have satisfied, because don't forget China moved from a planned economy, elevating hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. And then we have satisfied the basic needs of thirst and hunger. And then we move up in our needs. Then we get more educated. And then we are going back to appreciate things that are less material, more cultural, not immaterial, less material. So this emotional evolution is based on material development first, enrichness of economies, gradual elevation of tastes, each segment of the young generation moving in, getting more used to things than the previous one. So with that movement, you see more and more appreciation of things that the previous generations probably didn't pay attention to, right? So local dialect, and also because, there's so much talk recently because of the success of Dear You, I say that's a challenge to the movie industry. You spend so much money, so much marketing, so much gimmicky star power, and you lose to a little film that cost only 14 million to make, with all amateur people playing characters, right? So all that I think is interesting, but I think it's not mutually exclusive. We are in a phase that we see all those things because of other things happening, and that makes the further development even more interesting. It's probably a process of less obsession about quantitative growth, but qualitative appreciation. So it's all about that. More than ever today, especially today, China has reached a point that the collective appreciation of culture is on the rise. Moving forward, the younger Chinese generations carrying the torch of the previous generations that have contributed so much is to see how you can move the rest of the world, move people. I think we need to do that. And I'm pretty sure the younger generations can do that job better than the previous ones.
What do you understand about nowadays Chinese consumers that are different from previous consumers? Such as, like, I know a lot of people talk about that we are living in a generation where young consumers, they can have, like, I don't know, a Hermes bag and then tote bag from like a Trader Joe's together.
Mix and match.
Exactly.
Yes,
they
yeah.
don't mind that differences. Or they go more for a vintage products from certain brands instead of getting new collections.
Yes.
So it says a lot about nowadays consumer culture.
Yes.
What's your observation?
I think we tend to look at things only from our own generation's viewpoint, the current view, forgetting that fashion is always about out of fashion. Fashion is something that changes, right? So if you look at historically the fashion industry, people probably hardly realize even the Paris Fashion Week is only about 60 years old.
Oh,
you see?
Okay.
That's news to you, right?
It is.
You see?
I feel like it was there for
It's
a really long
forever.
time.
Okay. So everything is forever, nothing is forever. So once you're talking about fashion, change is the norm. Change is not an exception. And fashion is propelled by different waves of young generations. And we tend to forget that nobody is forever young, but always something young comes. Each generation will change fashion, but fashion doesn't change, exists. It's just in and out in new cycles. So yes, new generations can view it in a different way. I like my clothes this way, that way, but you are still wearing clothes. I don't like this brand, I like that brand, you are still wearing brand. If you don't like brand, you are wearing no brand called Muji. Okay, it's also becoming a brand. There are different ways of looking at things, but it doesn't change the fact that fashion is out of fashion. So it changes. The more fashionable we are, the more we want something different. But then you ask, why do some products or brands or companies last longer or last for generations? It's because they keep renewing themselves. We sometimes get probably wrongly impressed by, oh, this brand or this company has been how many years old? I see even local companies try to attempt and say, I'm from the Qing dynasty. Ah, really? So you could go to the museum and stay there. You see, I think this is a misconception. The age is important. The success is because they keep staying useful, not because they are from the Qing dynasty. So if you keep talking about, oh, how old you are, you're already wrong in assuming that's what's drawing the people to be your consumers. People are warming up to you is because you are alive. You stay relevant. You still are fashionable, right? You stay in fashion. So it's really a challenge. There's no guarantee, by the way. There's no guarantee and say, oh, you are number one, so therefore you are forever number one. No. It's voted by the market, the consumers. So therefore it's a constant interaction between the successful brand or a brand and the consumers. And the consumers have the say, right? Change is constant, is needed to rejuvenate what we consider a fashion environment.
localization of branding. This is a topic we constantly talk about during this podcast. You said like being localized is not about just putting like a Chinese, items, label on certain product and sell it in China.
Yes,
and especially now when the younger generation has so much awareness about their own culture. And then, of course, I want to bring up one of the biggest cases of localization we can find in the middle of the city is like the Louis ship that is part of the Shanghai so much. And every visitor nowadays coming to Shanghai, it's like Bund, Pudong, Louis.
Yes,
Except the visuals that everybody sees, obviously. What is some other message that you hope people will feel when they see this ship in the middle of Nanjing Silo?
Let me address this localization issue first from a personal viewpoint and my experience. I grew up in Shanghai as a Chinese, and I went to Canada. And my first impression I got in Canada is this dated Chinatown, right? Because I came from China. I see a Chinatown in North America, and I saw more Chinatown in Montreal, in New York, and in San Francisco. And every one of them gave you a feeling that that's not the China I came from, but nonetheless, it's called Chinatown, right? So it's a representation of China in a foreign land. I mentioned this first. And then, of course, me being a young man trying to be international, there was no interest in me and say, let me look very Chinese to you. Why? Because I'm already Chinese. Whatever I wear, I'm Chinese. Okay. So anyway, so that's one point I want to mention. As I was going through my career and all that, I realized this is a notion that get more and more, especially nowadays, more and more talked about, localization. And then, of course, I also see attempts, good intentioned attempts, sometimes controversial attempts, zodiac signs. Every year, zodiac signs, tiger, dragon, snake, monkey, it's endless. And then red lanterns. And in North America, going back and see fortune cookies, never heard of it. And even today in China, hardly anybody hear it. But in North America, all the Chinese restaurants, and people are having fun with it. Nothing wrong, okay? So there's Chineseness represented, good intentioned way or not, right? Differently. Now, fast forward. Now we look at China. After decades of China opening up, seeing all the things international, young people growing up, and they're wearing all kinds of things, Chinese brands going very strong. But you realize they are taking up American street style, but they are Chinese brands. They are not just going to Hanfu or going back to history, right? So you see this localization, so many attempts. Now, with all this, the Louis, the boat, connected so deeply, not because it has used any Chinese artists, no Chinese artists, no slogans, no red lantern, no dragon dance, nothing apparently Chinese. Would you agree?
Yeah,
But it's deeply, deeply connecting with Shanghai because it's a boat. Shanghai is a city of immigrants. And the immigrants in the last century came mostly by boat, right? Whether from Ningbo or even Shanghai housed 20, 30,000 Jewish refugees by boat. Mr. and Mrs. Einstein came to Shanghai to visit by boat. Charlie Chaplin came
okay, that one.
by boat.
Okay, I see.
So this boat connection, the river, the port, the city is a water city, right? Because all the twisted streets in Shanghai, by the way.
Yeah, it
because
is.
they are rivers. They used to be creeks. They became roads because, the city developed, right? So really deep, deep connection, connecting with the rest of the world by water. So when that is being celebrated, I think many people would agree with me, localization is not about just a slogan or cliche image of dragon dance or zodiac signs. It's a deep cultural connection. Can you move people like the Louis this way, right? And this moving sort of connection is what we need for localization, because as our consumers, our people are more and more sophisticated. So they probably will be less emotionally moved by something just, artificial, right?
Wow. Yes. Because I was like, I had some guess about why it was a ship. And then I'm like, why wasn't it an airplane or I don't know, big car over there? But then now this entire background story.
The success is not about what's happening on the Louis or inside. The success is what's happening outside the Louis in the street. Because if you look at the Louis, the exhibition on a daily basis, probably 2,000 attendees, 3,000 maximum. The restaurant upstairs, much fewer people. In between, there's a shop, right? So in combination, I would say on a daily basis, you attract into the Louis thousands maximum, right? But on the street, hundreds of thousands. That's what makes Louis the social phenomenon. That's what draws the global attention. It has already attracted more than, I checked yesterday, more than 106 countries/regions, citizens to purchase and do detax. Extraordinary and exceptionally unusual.
What is something that global brands still misunderstand about Chinese consumers nowadays?
China is moving so fast, changes so fast. If even for people who have visited, probably if they're not visiting very often, they would miss the change because last year's China versus now is different, right? For people who are not inside China, it's really very difficult to get it, right? Because all media may have some bias, Western media in particular. Yes, they come with Mr. Trump and they are impressed with the robots. But do they have the time to walk the streets that you and I are walking? Do they have the time to discover things that are seemingly not important and just watch what the young people are doing? Technology advances, these are very important, but all little things. And aesthetics, that's another thing. So this is probably closer to me than science and technology. You have to really pay attention to what's going on aesthetically. The local boutique hotels, the local little coffee shop, the local whatever clothes brand. They may not be shouting, but the quality, the colors,
Something is special.
something is really there. Thankfully to you as well to have such a podcast. I think it's a vehicle to see if we all collectively could promote this missing sort of understanding of what's going on, what's up in China. Away from politics, away from the big slogans, away from the headline grabbing, events, just small things. It's what's happening in the street. It's really important.
You say like it's the key is about like walking the streets, walking the walk, understanding the market internally. So what if they are not here and they are thinking about entering Chinese market? Let's say it's a really small company that does, as we say, colorful stuff, nice stuff. What they can consider before entering China market?
Well, first of all, China is not one China; it's many, many Chinas.
Good point.
For those small companies who have not yet noticed or entered China, I assume you are small, so therefore you need to take bite size, not seeing the whole country as a prize that you have to conquer, right? Multinational companies, probably with no exceptions, already in China. Fortune 500, etc. So for companies who have not entered the market, now you need to see this market not as one market. You need to really take the bite size, right? Shanghai is 25 million people. Is it a bite? Australia is 25 million people, I think. Canada is maybe 30. So it's really too big for a small company to bite. Maybe you should bite Huangpu district or whatever, right? So I think you need to really take that sort of realistic approach. If you only focus on the big picture and say, 1.4 billion people, is it shrinking? Yes, it's apparently shrinking because young people are not giving birth to kids, etc. But that's a global trend, probably. But at the same time, the size is so big. Yeah, we miss a few millions, but we have billions.
Yeah, but that's true, right?
Earlier, I think we mentioned about food and all that.
Yeah.
Yes, there are dying formats of eating,
Yeah.
but yes, there are also rising formats of eating, sophistication, fusion. People don't eat as much. They shouldn't because they are, too much sugar and all that sort of thing.
So
But
sad
at
to
the
hear.
same time, they are enjoying the aesthetics of food. So all that sophistication, I travel and I compare. And I think what I experience in Shanghai is far superior than other places. I'm sorry to say to people who are not here in the city, come and enjoy. China has become so sophisticated. Don't assume you have something to offer either, right? You see, because depends on what you have. Because the level of competition here is also fierce. You hear about 内转, local 内转. So who's going to give it to you and say, oh, because you're foreign, so therefore I'm not going to 转 you. You need to take a very humble approach. But obviously, because the market is differentiated so much. And the awareness of what's going on internationally also, not perfect, but certainly more than ever. Here, I would say, compared to global environments, the consumers are still very eager to try new things. But obviously, because of that, it's not easy to stay in the game because people easily give you up and for something new. Right?
Actually true. This rise of, we talk about AI, like online consuming, and I'm sure this is a question everybody probably asks you. How do actual stores survive in terms of like consumers?
There's no answer to that question in general because what needs to die needs to die. What will be born will be born. Because if you are talking about offline, online, that struggle, it started probably more than 15 years ago. And at the same time, different countries, physical retail dying for different reasons. With the well-developed e-commerce, the perfect convenience, the instant deliveries that you and I get every 5 minutes probably, right? Does push physical retail to be much better, to be really, really excellent. So therefore, in a way, I think the birth of new physical retail in China probably will be better than any other place. Because it's 内转, result of 内转. The emotional value is what is the essence of physical retail to come. So therefore, the old formats may die, be replaced. And after all, it's still a city of 25 million people.
Finish the sentence. China is not hard to understand. It is?
It's a book that requires you not to just read the cover.
That's such a great answer. One of the best answers ever. Home is not a place. It is?
Where you feel comfortable. And that could be a state of mind.
The world becomes better when people
try to talk to each other more often. Communication. Listen to each other more often. Because they need to listen to your podcast.
Right? Please listen to each other. The younger Andrew Wu would be most surprised by
the older Andrew Wu. No. Younger me will be more surprised that things change so fast. When I was younger, I would never have imagined the world changed so fast. Just within the last few decades.
Any Shanghainese word you use very often?
When I was growing up and among my friends, I think there's a common expression, I don't know if people still use it or not, called 有数.
有数, 心里有数.
You see, it could be a question. 有数啊?
Or 有数, 心里有数.
You see, the answer could be 有数. That's interesting because if you literally translate it, it's do you have numbers?
Yeah, do you have numbers, direct translation.
But it doesn't mean that. It means a lot of what cannot be said. Do you get it?
You get it?
You see? 有数啊?
Yes. Foreigner traveling to China for the first time. two cities you would recommend them to go to understand China a little bit, to have a glimpse of China?
China is too big
I know.
to understand
That's
by
what-
visiting two cities.
All right, let's say first two cities. It would be nice for them to visit.
Shanghai is a good place to start to understand China. Obviously, almost like an obligation, you need to go to Beijing to see the enormity of, the Middle Kingdom, right? But Beijing represents a slice of China, important, but not the whole of China. So therefore, Shanghai is an easy place to get in. But don't stop there. You see, that's my message. And visa-free is for 30 days? Is it for 30 days?
Yeah, I think, depending the country. Some
okay,
can even have
15
90
maybe.
days.
Yes, yeah.
You have entire China to
Yes,
explore.
you can go out and come back.
I like we're giving everyone the hints. What to
Yes,
do.
yes. They think we're working for a travel agency.
Yeah, right? If the Louis could sail anywhere in the world, where you think it should go first, and what message should it carry from Shanghai?
I think the Louis has already sailed into the hearts of millions. It needs not to go anywhere physically. People always say, how do you describe Haipai? Well, Haipai, the solution is no pie. It's unfixed. It's water. It's mixing with other things and then becoming your own, right? I always would say to my friends, not from China, and say Shanghai is a city of China, but also it's a city of the world. It's not just a city that representing one country. It's a city representing a fused culture, very proudly Chinese city, but very international. Louis is not the Louis for Shanghai. Louis is the Louis from Shanghai for the whole world. That's my feeling.
One small everyday thing that makes me irrationally happy is
I can still talk to young people. That makes me very happy. Because as long as I don't look at myself in the mirror, I don't feel
even
I've
if you
changed.
do, you don't really.
Honestly, I feel very happy that I can continue to communicate, not just talk to, meaning let me give you a lesson. That's very important, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Mr.
for your time.
Thanks for your time and sharing with us your knowledge. And you are such a perfect guest for my podcast, especially with your very Shanghainese background. And this podcast was born in Shanghai, but still it carries such an international message. And then you are such a perfect representative,
I like to share what I know.
which we are very thankful.
I feel a sort of a personal, I don't want to call it a responsibility, a personal desire to want to connect the past and present and hopefully the future. Because I've seen a lot of very professional people get very fixated with history. Rightly so. I've seen too many people living in the present, only the present, because this is what China has become. This is Shanghai has achieved, etc., etc. We are living in the present. And I also see a lot of anxiety about where are we going. Not that I know everything, but by digging into the historic knowledge, not that I know, but I'm learning, it helps us to understand today better. And by connecting the two dots, it may also help us to address the anxiety. That's where I see my role, probably not just my work in life, is to connect, because I'm at an age with credibility, experience, and knowledge, and a cultural background to connect, because there are too many things that we as people cannot control. The young generation should also be aware of, not get overly worried about all those things as if you are just the one that is holding the burden of the whole, the globe, right? Because there are people before you and there will be people after you. So yes, right-sizing the problems. Not get too worried. Things will work out. There's a song called Don't Worry, Be Happy. Sing that song. Why do you call Here We Are?
So here, because it's a result. Everybody in Shanghai is the result of a story. So here we are.